It's great to be here. And I have to admit to you, that is aspiration. That is the world to come. That is what everyone in this room is ultimately going to be building. And specifically, the strong support we've gotten from Nokia to take this concept to reality both in terms of satellite as well as the equipment, is just astounding. And so I'm glad you enjoyed the video. I have to admit to you that it is intended to not only educate, but motivate. Everything that you saw there is what we refer to in the business as COTS. It's commercial off the shelf. In other words, all that capability could be built tomorrow, and we're doing it. And we're doing it not only ourselves, but we're doing it with strong partnership with Nokia. What you see here is really the core of the network. You've heard a lot of people talk about multi-domain networks. We're building a multi-domain network. We're not only providing the satellite system, we're also basically deploying our dark fiber through fiber vendors. We're also buying up subsea so that we actually have a network that has 3 layers to it. Those 3 layers essentially operate as a single layer. You'd think that'd be common sense, wouldn't you? I mean, they just operate together as a single ecosystem with products, particularly software like WaveSuite and our own software solution. It allows the networks to be cognitive, self-aware, to pick the best route, best latency, to be able to select and bypass what may be problems in the network. You've seen Mateo's little Swiss village next door in the Innovation Center. He can show you how, through fiber sensing, he can see if fiber has got a problem or subsea's got a problem. He'll ultimately be able to see satellite communications, laser comms have a problem. And if so, the network software will be able to route it in a more efficient way without an operator having to get involved or engaged in it, saving time, latency, and also taking complication out of the discussion. AI will help with that as well. You look at the layers, although the reason this is being built, elastic networking, cognitive networking, low latency, that's the new currency. When you're in the enterprise space, you're looking at trying to have an advantage over another company or another provider. Latency, price per bit, per capex, per opex, all of those factor in to whether or not you're going to win that customer. Direct connect, as it sounds, you saw in the video, direct connecting to particular little circles on the Earth. Those are ground stations. They're not Earth stations. They're ground stations. Ground stations are very small. They're roughly the size of a small car, and they sit out on the far edge of the network, cutting latency. So you actually have the ability to move traffic from one location to another more efficiently by using the ground network system tied to either the fiber or the subsea cable or the satellite system. Why are we doing it? First of all, it's an improvement. It's an improvement, and our industry is all about improvement. I'm old enough to remember 3 generational shifts in this industry. The last one was about 25, 30 years ago when this thing called WDM came out. Also, e-commerce came out, and it happened to bring life into something that was really cool called the internet, and then the World Wide Web. There's no Moore's Law in this space, in our particular part of the telecom industry, but the real law is about every 25 to 30 years, there's disruption. And we're now in a point of disruption, not both technologically, but also operationally. As you can see, at least from our standpoint, we view that there is a real movement disaggregating out of the WAN, basically going further and further into what would be the consumption side, which would be the edge, and then the far edge. They're doing this for a couple of reasons. One is a generational shift, as Vito mentioned earlier. There are parts of this world where it's a young workforce, and there's a part of this world where it's a highly educated but aging workforce. I have the gray hair to prove that. So in the aging workforce, we in turn are looking to a younger workforce to not only replace us, but also go beyond us. And as Vito's numbers indicated, that's Asia. That's Asia. To give you a data point, you basically, from Tokyo, it's 86 milliseconds to Manila. That's just on subsea, 86 milliseconds. If you build the infrastructure in Manila that has the ability to do certain services, faster work at less unit cost, because the price per unit services is lower in the Philippines than it would be here in Tokyo or in Japan, then you've got a competitive advantage. There's one company, for example, Gone Global, that's entire business case is built on selling accounting, bookkeeping, inventory control, a lot of this real difficult but repetitive work. And they basically sell it to American companies, Japanese companies, European companies, because instead of paying $70,000 a year for an employee in New York, you're paying $7,000 a year in Manila. Now, that's not disadvantaging the individual in Manila, because the individual in Manila's basic income is going to basically go up, and their quality of life will go up, and then the infrastructure has to go up with it. That's the opportunity for a lot of you in this room. In addition to that is both the edge equipment and standardization. This is something we've worked with Nokia on. If you're going to the far edge, you have to introduce a concept called modularity. In other words, if you're going to build numbers of sites at scale, you have to be able to have production level of equipment and then have just-in-time delivery of telco equipment. I've been around 30 years in this, and I've never, just-in-time delivery is usually when the check is cashed. You actually don't get it like you get just-in-time delivery in other industries, but the ability to order a type of system and have it drop shipped and installed in 90 days and do it at scale 10 times on market is huge. Brings your OpEx down, brings your CapEx down. It'll get you to market first, get you to revenue faster. This is a map that we've seen a couple of times on the presentation. This is really important, in my opinion. The traffic that leaves Japan and goes to Europe, a lot of it flows to the United States. 40% of the Japanese or Asia traffic that flows on submarine cable that crosses the U.S. doesn't stay there. It doesn't rest there. It's not consumed there. That data continues on the way to basically to Europe. That's a highly inefficient routing. But the worst case is the traffic going down into Latin America or into Africa or into the South China Sea area or Oceania have to go down in an inefficient route. Meaning, in other words, these drop routes of submarine cable that go down and serve the Southern Hemisphere. That is a disadvantage to the Southern Hemisphere. Australia should be connected directly to Latin America, the Southern Cone, and directly again to Southern Africa. There should be an equivalent movement of traffic in the Southern Hemisphere as there is in the Northern Hemisphere. Why is that? Why isn't there a cable from Australia to Chile? There's going to be. Google's going to fund one called the Humboldt cable. But why now? That's because the value of that market, this market, the Asia-Pacific market, is basically being recognized. This is, and you are all the future. You put a stream of satellites across that same picture, and you connect those satellites into key markets, and now you've replicated the northern stream with a southern stream to a fully engaged, a fully integrated stream, which will bring both efficiency and drive down basically cost per bit per mile. Here's an example. We're trying to basically bring countries together by lowering the latency between one continent and another. We're trying to bring between those shorelines, the east coast of the United States and the west coast of the United States, closer together by bypassing what would be inefficient traffic, in other words, fiber networks, and creating high-speed routes instead. So you have a high-speed highway, well, in this case, a data highway. It doesn't go inefficiently to TCP locations or to data centers or in the WAN to what we used to call the NFL cities or the FIFA cities in Europe. It goes instead coast to coast. The goal is to wipe out 15, 20 milliseconds crossing the US. Now, if you're Japanese companies and are trying to get to Europe, and that turns out to be a 15 to 20 second advantage, that's a route that has value, especially in high-frequency trading, where it's $10,000 per millisecond saved on a trade. That's a huge advantage. We did these latency tables in the context of Australia. And if you notice, in the green part, the laser light part, this is on the satellites only. On the right-hand side happens to be off of WonderNet, which is a ping test. That's on fiber and subsea cable. The advantage that Sydney has in these 6, 7 markets out of 8, those are trading desks. Sydney could turn itself into, Australia could turn itself into a trading hub in the Southern Pacific because it has a faster, lower latency platform than you'd necessarily have in New York. Bring all this together. When you pull it all together, you really are looking at this distance-insensitive network. These 3, whether it be a metro hub, a micro hub or POP or a super POP, they have all one thing in common. They're converged. Notice the fiber, the racks, basically what's the layer 2 on top of this. Even 5G has the ability to run as a single ecosystem. AI will make that easier. Generative AI will be helpful in terms of managing not only the use of the network with customers. Distributive AI will make this faster. It'll make it more cognitive. And this ecosystem here will, in fact, be the ecosystem that supports that entire segment that you just saw. Finally, what does that mean for products and services? You have these management layers. Management layer 1, 2, and 3 all are heavily dependent, product management and also service layer, traffic transport layer. In our case, we're using Wave Suite, and we also have our own proprietary software that we'll ultimately be bringing in to handle distributive AI, in other words, running the network. The Wave Suite product that we're interested in is essentially what is being discussed here in this conference to help us understand better how to use the network. So one's the use of the network, the other one is running the network. One contributes value based on customers, the other one is contributing lower latency, lower transport costs, and greater security. And that all leads really to revenue and the products. We think we have some market-leading products. One is particularly, was mentioned C+L, you'll hear later in the conference. We want to be able to slice the light. We know a lot of, especially Rakuten is talking about 5G slicing. We want to slice WDM. And we want to slice it not just from point A to point B, but globally. Be able to run a global color and then lease that global color to hyperscalers or OTTs, those of which who account for roughly 40% of all the data which is going around the world, they account for it. And in addition to that, of that 40%, 60% is streaming video. So the idea of being able to give a dedicated color to a hyperscaler who in turn can reset that color to their customers or their customers of customers, that allows that hyperscaler to be in control of both their customer as well as the movement of their data around the world. It doesn't replace local fiber. It doesn't replace submarine cable. It enhances it. It takes some of the pressure off. You cut a cable, you go up to the layer 2, and it can basically operate on essentially like a fiber optic network. I want to make a special point here. These are all optical satellites. There's no RF on them. This is not Starlink. This is not an internet platform. This is not a LEO constellation. These sit in medium Earth orbit. Because they're all WDM, uplink, crosslink, downlink, they operate at over 33 terabits of capacity. I'll repeat that. 33 terabits of capacity and growing. Now, the interesting thing is, we don't charge for transport. We are not a transport company. We don't charge for circuits. We don't charge for anything like that. We are a data services company, which means we provide what would be the data support of the enterprise customer, the customer of your customers. We provide that kind of service. And so that allows us to offer something that's also new. And that is, based on a price per bit, we can offer a global data plan. If you use a zettabyte, then you pay this. If you come in under, just like a wireless plan, you roll it over. If you, in fact, go over, you basically pay a lesser amount. It's moving, again, wireless pricing, convenience, mobility, into what would be an industry that is pretty brittle when it comes to being able to come up with sign an MSA, here's an SLA, and now we got a deal. No, all you got to do is basically sign up for a global data plan. We give you access to every one of the elements in the network, and then you run the network yourself through basically a customer portal. We'll offer the same standard offerings, but basically As far as the company is concerned, we want to support ISPs, not compete with them. We want to support CSPs, not compete with them. We want to be in the fabric. We won't want to be in the front. And to do that, we want to be able to do it in such a way that we change it all. Thank you.